Hello and welcome today to Riverside Crafts. I'm Ray, one of the tutors, and today we're going to be making this card. I just wanted to show you how I made it because as you can see it's built up quite nicely using some decoupage elements and some little bits of snippets of cardboard shapings and things. So I want to show you the pack it comes from. Okay, so it comes out of this paper pack, which is called Thankful Heart by Celebrate. In the pack you get your stencil, which is shown here, some embellishments and ribbons, these little bits here which are compressed board, but they're like little decorative elements that you can use. So they're the bits that I've been using to do the card with, and the stencil I shall use today. So I'm going to show you one of the things that I do. It's because on the papers you get some that are literally just for cutting out. Okay, and what I do is when I get my papers home, I sit down and cut out the embellishment sheet so that I have then got all my bits and bobs sorted for me to use to make my cards, my scrapbook pages or what. So I sit down and cut them all out. This is easier done than you think because they actually have a black line that goes all the way around for you to follow, and so you get a nice white edge. It's actually on there for you to follow, so it's not as hard to cut around them as you think. So it's a little bit of fussy cutting, but not too bad. I'll just find the page. I'm just going to show you. So if I just take this one out, this one's got elements yet that needs to be cut out, and as you can see it has the lines on it here for you to cut around to create your shapes and to keep them a nice shape. All the circle bits tell you which size circle punch you need to punch them out, so it's none of it's left to chance for you to struggle with it or not know what to do. It's all organized for you and it makes life very easy, which is nice. Right, so put the paper pack down and get my little kit out that I started off with. So I've cut myself a piece of paper, which is, I'm going to be using this one, and I'm going to do a little bit of inking on it using the stencil from the pack just to help give it a bit more colour and a bit more shape. So I'm using the ground espresso because I want to just a little bit more on it than what you can see. So I'm just going to get that out and my brush. Okay, so I've got a little brush that I use. I'm just going to put a little bit on the edges. I'm not going to go mad. I don't want it too heavy. I'm just giving it a little bit of a tone. So can you see I've got some bits coming up there, which comes up quite nicely, but I'm not looking at putting it on too heavily. I'm really just sort of blending it through the stencil just to give me a little bit of shape and colour and bits. The papers are already have got echoes of the shapes that they give you for the stencils in them, which helps to keep your it sort of flowing a little bit easier. So that's my little bit of inking I've done. Okay, so I think that's my background piece. And here we go next. We've got this bit to go. And I need my little square. Where's my square gone? Here it is. No, that's not the right square. This one. Here we go. My square to go on there. That way around. I'm just going to put a little bit of my stenciling colours onto this. But I'm going to use the same stencil, but I'm going to use a green tone to go in it this time to pick up the green in the background. So I'm using a pale green if I've got one, if I can find it this morning. I'm having a moment with my inks, can't see what I'm looking for. Here we go. So I'm looking at Shabby Cutters, which is quite a nice pale green. So I've got that one out. Just going to get my brush for that. Here we go. Green brush sorted. And again, I'm just going to add a little bit onto the edges. I'm not cleaning my stencil because that little bit of brown will help link it all in as well anyway. So I'm just putting a little bit through just to help it do. This is a really nice way of tying in what you're working with and bringing it all together, making it feel a bit more sort of like you've worked hard on your project, but you've not had to do so much work as you think. So as you can see, that's going to sit now and it's going to echo the shapes through the stencil, which is what we're looking for. So that's done that little bit. Okay, sorry about my chair. Right, here you go. I've got this piece to cut out because I wanted to show you the black line so if you can see what it is. And one of the things I like to do when I'm cutting out is I actually tend to use a larger pair of scissors than what you think, because you can move the paper and get a more accurate cut using a bigger pair of scissors, or I find, than trying to move my scissors all the time. So I tend to use my stencil, move my paper rather than my scissors, and that gives me a much better finish for my cutting. As you can see, I'm moving the paper, not my scissors, in the same way. All I'm doing is gradually closing my scissors down and accessing, but I'm turning the cardstock to give me, oops, a better finish. I'm not too panicky about it. If I get too close, it's not the end of the world. It's there to sort of give you a guide. So don't worry if you're thinking, oh, that's going to be too close, I'm not going to be able to do that. Accuracy is not necessarily the best thing to worry about. Just sort of go with it. You'll find that the little bits that you think, oh, I've just cut extra off and I shouldn't have done, won't really matter in the overall scheme of things. You'll not notice it. And you can see I'm just literally cutting around things and giving it the best. Not moving my scissors too much, moving my paper to give me the better finish to what I'm looking for. Right, so take my rubbish out of the way. There we go. And there's my centerpiece of my image. Now I'm going to build this up. So I'm just going to give you, so you can see how I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be doing as I go along. Okay, so I've got to find all my flowery bits first, because these go on in a minute. Snail's not going on just yet, and neither is I'm going to be using these bits. And I've got some colouring to do. I need to colour in my bits here that I've cut, that I've got there to use. They need to all be coloured in. So I'm just going to colour these quickly first. I'm going to just go directly with the ink pad onto them because it's going to be quicker. And they pick up the ink quite nicely, these do. So these are bits from elements from what came with it and what I've had from other packs the same. I quite like the Celebrate way they do things, because it gives you a nice mix of bits to use, so that works quite nicely. So I've got to shape this little bit, so I'm going to give it a bit of a shape. Okay, and I'm going to put myself some foam pads on the back. Now the foam pads that I like to use are the ones we have in the shop, the Crafters Companion ones, and I use the thick ones because I like the depth on the project, if that makes sense. It sort of brings it a bit more to life. So I'm not going to go too mad, and I tend to leave some near the edge when I'm pulling them off in case I need a smaller bit, because then I can break it off. So I'm going to take the bits off, the paper off. Here we go. Come on, off you go. Thank you. This is the one thing I struggle with, is getting these bits of paper off. I'm not good at that. Right, so that's going to sit just there. Now I've put it already in position because I'm going to be able to poke stuff around it now, which gives me a little bit more of the sort of feel that I'm looking for. So I'm going to sort of poke some bits in where I want them. So I'm just going to, using a craft knife, I'm just going to put a couple of cut lines in up here. Okay, so I've done that bit. I'm just going to do a bit up here so it goes. Should have done this before I stuck it down. I hadn't thought about it. I forgot. But it's good to see that it can be done afterwards. Sorted. Right. So I've done that for a minute. Now I'm going to start poking things in. So this one is going to go in here. Okay. So I'm just going to put this into, pull them with that bit up, and I'm going to put it so it sits just there. Okay. Right. Another foam pad. So that's just going to slide in just in there, and that gives me a bit of shaping on that edge. Now these ones, this I actually cut and split. So, and because I've used it here and here, so I've actually split it. So I'm just going to do that now. And all I did was give myself a bit of a wiggle down through it so that I could cut it in half, basically. Which is what I've done. So that's my cut there. Just going to cut into these bits so it looks a bit more like I was thinking about it when I did it. There we go. Right, so foam pads on the back of these. Okay, and I'm just going to push this in behind, so that's sitting just there. So it's not decoupage like you cut lots and lots of shapes out and that's how it's going to work. It's about you playing with what you've got and looking at it and thinking, well, I can actually do a little bit more there. So take a bit more off that one so it goes down a bit lower. There we go. So it's going to come in just in there like so. Put that bit out of the way for the moment. I've got another one here to go on, so I'm just going to put a foam pad on the back of that one, and that's going to go in under here like that. I've got one here to go on, which is a rose hip. I'm just going to put that up here, so it's just underneath the bits I cut out, but not quite there. Right, and now I'm going to cut these up a bit so I can use them. So I'm just going to cut that tram into there so that I've got two pieces of it. Whoops, fingers. Helps if you can keep everything in all in the same place. There we go, fingers. Done. So I'm just going to put a piece at the top. Now this will need some glue because these are thick. They're not going to work with the foam pads. So, and I'm using my favourite glue again, which is the Pinflair one, which is my favourite. So I'll put this piece in. Just going to go up there so it gives you another feeling for it. There we go. Just going to trim this piece down as well so that we're not using, we can go further. Put a little bit of glue on this one. Okay, well, that's gone in there. Put a bit of glue over this bit here. And it's going in here. Just got to poke it in. There we go, it's in. This one is coming to go. Right, put this one on now. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to sort of give it a bit of a shape before I put it on to cover the other one. So that now brings that forward. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this because it's going to sit underneath here quite nicely. And hang down there. There we go. Looking good. Looking very good. Drop my foam pads just because, which is normal for me to drop things. Last little bit of this stuff to go in. I'm just going to put it there so it looks like it's a bit more. Oops, come back here, you. Need to take off a bit more of that stem. The stem's in the way. I want it to go underneath a bit more. There we go. So that can sit just there. So that's my topper bit made. Okay. So then I'm just going to start adding in the other bits. Want a little bit of black card. There we go. So I'm going to glue this piece onto my black card. And then trim it down. So I'm going to put it at the top of it, like so. It's not too bad. Guillotine. I like this one by Fix Viscars. It's been, can line it up quite easily, and I find that I cut better with a traditional guillotine than what I do with a paper trimmer. Paper trimmers, I tend to end up with bits everywhere, so for me it's a better option. Right, so this is now going on here. I need a little bit of twine, so I've just got that now, just to put it around the edge. Just grab it some, trim it off. Okay, so my twine now is going to wrap around this piece, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Take it that way a little bit more so that I can have my bow bit at the front, my tie piece. Fingers through. I'm just going to tie a knot in it because it'll look nice then. There we go, knots in. Just trim off the excess there. I'm going to glue this down here because it will hold the twine then as well. So that's going to sit just like so. And now you can see how that's working. Right, now we've got a couple little bits to go on it. And that to just keep it all in together. To give myself a little bit on the, to give it sort of a little bit of shape, I'm just going to trim in the edges so that gives me a little bit more when it sits here. I'm just going to put some foam pads on it. So I need one in the middle And then I should put some glue on it because that will help it look a bit more like I want it. Foam pad, it's going to sit just there. And then I'm going to put some glue under that end there. So it just sort of sits down quite nicely like so. So that's my glue going on that piece. I've got my snail to go on, and he's going to need some foam pads as well. Just put one on the back there for him. He's going to sit slightly differently this time because he's actually going to be his different hand to what the one I used last time, but that doesn't matter. So I'm just going to put him here slithering along underneath this time. And I've got a little tab up here that I'm going to put on that I'm